Welcome to Dog on the Plot. I'm Kerry, this is Dory, and today we're on our soon-to-be X-plot. So as you can tell, there's an awful lot to be done. There's a lot to be cleared and moved from this plot as we transition to our new plot. I say we because Mark, my brother-in-law, who has the plot next door to me here, we're going to be sharing the new plot. So both of us have got an awful lot of work to do, and Mark is already very busy, but I have been busy too. So the first job I did, which you might remember from last week, is take all the buckets of potatoes down to the new plot so they can be sheltered in the polytunnel. So that's been done. I've also cleared the small greenhouse that had the tomatoes in. I've taken the tomatoes out of all the buckets, but I've kept the compost in the buckets because I think that's going to be useful for transplanting plants out of this plot onto the new plot. So I've done that, but the thing I think I really need to start doing, and is my job for today, is clearing out some of the pallet beds. And then once they're cleared, I can assess the compost, because I had a lot of good quality compost put on this plot. So I would quite like to gather that up and take it with me to the new plot, but without the slugs and the slug eggs and without any perennial weeds. So we're going to have to assess that as we go along. And then the pallets themselves I want to take down to the new plot. So I think that is going to be my job for today. And perhaps after that, we'll start thinking about the plants that can be moved. But yeah, there's plenty to get on with. It's going to be a super busy few weeks as we move everything from these plots to the new plots, including the big structures like the greenhouses, and for Mark, the polytunnel as well. Poor Mark, who's only just put up that polytunnel and now is going to be moving it to the new plot. Right, the cousin is here, so it's time to get some work done. So we're going to crack on, and I'll show you what we achieve. Well, what a difference a weekend makes. Hey, not only is the sun shining now, but the plot is looking particularly bare, and we did so much work over the weekend, and I didn't capture very much of it, but I will splice in what I did as we go around and look at what has been achieved. And yeah, as I say, it's an awful lot really. And this is one of the advantages of having my brother-in-law on the plot next door to mine and doing the move at the same time that I am, because that is so motivating when you've got somebody else down here helping, doing their bit, you're helping each other. My cousin came down as well, and she was a massive help, so thank you to Becky. And yeah, I mean, I really did not expect that we would get as much done as we did. Not nearly as much as we did, if I'm honest. And yeah, the big structures are gone. The thing that has stayed, as you can see, is the arches at the front and the front beds, because there's such a lot growing on there, and the beans aren't quite ready yet. We are due rain from this weekend, and the temperatures are going to drop considerably, to the point that we are forecast snow for next week. So the beans are going to have to come down, I think, Saturday morning, and when I do that, then the arches will come down as well. And then, other than doing the digging over of the plot, it will be pretty much ready to pass on. And honestly, I thought I was going to take the full 2 months that I've got to get this plot cleared, but perhaps not. Perhaps not. I mean, there are still some big things to move, which I'll show you as we go around. But yeah, let's take a look. So if I walk down to the front of the plot, you can see Mark's plot behind me here, and how bare that is too. So the greenhouse is still there on Mark's plot, but the polytunnel is gone. So it was actually really easy to move the polytunnel. It's super light frame. So it just took me and Mark and my cousin to move that down to the end of the site and onto the new plot, and it's found its new home. We also had to take the base down, which was a little bit more cumbersome, but we managed to do that too. So that was a big thing, to move the polytunnel. And yeah, it certainly kicked us off to a good start when that went down. And I think once you've achieved moving an entire polytunnel to a new plot, everything else seems very manageable. Which is why, if we look through the arches, you can see that my big greenhouse and my small greenhouse are both gone. So the big greenhouse, I didn't have any glass in it, so that was pretty easy to move, and we didn't need quite so many people this time because it was easier to get it off the front of the plot now that the polytunnel had gone. So that went down, and yeah, that's onto the new plot, not in position yet, but is on there. And then I think it was Sunday morning when I arrived, my cousin and Mark were already here, and as I came around the corner, I saw them lifting the small greenhouse up. They'd taken out the 6 panes of glass and they were already moving that onto my cousin's plot. So that's found its new home on her plot. The greenhouse is gone, but what's still here is the bathtub. So yeah, that's full of murky, dirty water, which will need pouring out, and then the bathtub will need taking down. But it's got a light bathtub, so that shouldn't be much of a problem. There is stuff behind the greenhouse that will need moving. I'll leave probably these water butts because there are enough on the plot. That's the staging for the little greenhouse actually, so that needs to go to my cousin's plot. And the shed was here when I took on this plot, so that's staying. But what I am tempted to take with me, I think I am going to take them with me, is my fruit trees. So this is an apple tree that came from my cousin's garden. It had apples on this year and they were delicious. This is my Elstar apple tree. Those apples were very tiny this year, but they were tasty. And then this is the pear tree, of which I got the tiniest pear this year, but it did produce, and that was also from my cousin's garden. But my dilemma is, where are they going to go on the new plot? I'm not sure there's a sort of sensible place to put 3 trees that might grow quite big. So I have to think about that. But for the meantime, I think I'll just pop them into buckets and take them down, or heel them in somewhere on the new plot, and then think about that over the winter. Now the big bed here, which had the bean structure, no beans, just the structure this year, and also had the pumpkin plants, no pumpkins, just the plants. That one had the greenhouse on, which has been taken off. And we also had a little bonfire on here at the weekend to get rid of some of the rotten wood. The nasturtiums that were around the bean structure, and were the only things to grow around the bean structure, are still going like billio, and I'm all for it. It's lovely to have that splash of colour on the plot, and it looks gorgeous in this sunshine. Now the brassica bed is looking quite different because I have taken down all the brassica cage and netting, and I've actually removed a few of the brassicas. So I had 9-star broccolis in this section. I've taken most of those out and put them onto the new plot. The sweet corn came down, that was all done. And I took out a couple of the Cavolo Neros as well and took those down. And my nephew was here at the weekend, and he picked some Cavolo Nero for his dinner, and he said, I think that you should harvest all of this kale and put it in your freezer because you put a lot of time and effort into growing these, and I don't think you should leave them behind. I said that was very good advice from him, and I will probably do that. But I do think it is nice to leave something on the plot for the next person, because when I got this plot there were leeks on here, and my first harvest were those leeks, and it was so exciting. Even though I hadn't planted them myself, they were the first harvest from the new plot. So I think I probably will leave something, and actually these are going to be left. And they are the Tortondine kale, which, I mean, has recovered absolutely beautifully from its pigeoning earlier in the season. There's also the josterberry behind it, and the Saskatoon. There is a gooseberry and some currants behind there as well. And yeah, one of the reasons that I'm leaving things in this bed though is because it's a particularly weedy bed, and I don't want to bring those weeds with me as well, especially with that josterberry, because that came from the plot next door. I moved it from Jim's plot to mine when he didn't want it anymore, and it brought some bindweed with it, and there hadn't been bindweed in this bed until then. So yeah, I think I'm going to leave that for the next person. But all the beds, the raised beds, came out of this section. Same with the section behind me. So all the raised beds moved from this section and this bed where the tomatoes were. And if you remember, I had a few onions that were still in this bed that hadn't done much over the season, so I harvested those. They were very tiny, but hey, it's a harvest. Now, speaking of leaving things, a bit of a dilemma about this bed as well. So this has the raspberry canes in. Some have done okay, some not so well. And my potatoes were in here, so this is a really nicely mulched bed as well, because remember I did the potatoes in the wood chip. And certainly this is the fall gold raspberry that seems to have benefited from that mulch, and the massive rhubarb behind it, which I grew that rhubarb from seed. So I do feel like I would like to take that with me. But it's the same thing, it's a particularly weedy bed and I don't want to bring those weeds with me. I just saw a ripe raspberry. Hang on a second. Oh, there's a few here. Oh, look at that. Oh, maybe I'll take that one with me. And there's some of the fall gold as well ready. I love these fall gold ones. Little pale yellow raspberries. Actually, I don't know if I prefer those to the red ones. Taste another. They're both delicious. Right, let me take you to the bed on this side, because what's missing here is the bed. The bed has gone. It's gone to the new plot. Some people hoped it was gone for good. That person is Mark. He said he didn't think the bed was the right aesthetic for the new plot. I disagreed, and it's down there. Here are some of my Austerian tree cabbages. I have taken one down to the new plot, and the 9-star broccoli that was in the spot there. And behind these were the younger brassicas. So I think I'd got some purple sprouting broccolis in here. I think there was also another Tortondine kale. So I've moved those over to the new plot. Another rhubarb grown from seed. Oh dear. So just for context, the rhubarb issue is because there is an absolutely enormous rhubarb on the new plot. But I have about 4 rhubarbs on this plot. Mark has about 4 rhubarbs on his plot, and we really want to bring all the rhubarbs with us. But yeah, you don't need that many rhubarbs, except we were starting to think, wouldn't it be awesome to make rhubarb wine? And then you might need that many rhubarbs. So yeah, we may have an entire bed of rhubarbs on the new plot. We shall see. So that just leaves the front bed of the plot, including the Belfast sink actually. That needs moving. The arches need to come down, but like I say, I think these beans are going to be harvested this weekend, and then the arches can come down. And at the front here we've got the Cape gooseberries. They will die next week. They will die. The frost will come and they'll be gone. So I'm going to harvest what I can of those, and then they can come out. In fact, I might just let the frost do the job for me. That's probably easier. But behind the Cape gooseberries is this. And this is, yeah, it's full and it's glorious, and I don't want to pull it all up just yet. So we've got leeks in here, we've got Brussels sprouts along here. I have moved a couple of those to the new plot, not sure they'll transplant that well. Same goes for the peppermint chard, which, oh my goodness, just look at it. It's absolutely beautiful, isn't it? That colour. So I've moved a couple of those into pots and taken them down to the new plot. In this bed, well, there's some tree spinach and weeds, but there's also mustards, and they're actually looking okay. There they are. Oh, and the Rebecca is still flowering. In the middle bed, we've got beetroot. They're still growing nicely. Loads of spinach, the chard. There is a lettuce under there as well, being a bit squished. And then in the far bed, we've got radishes, and more spinach and more beetroot that is younger than the beetroot in the middle bed. So although I'm tempted to just kind of rip everything out, do it, get the plot dug over and given up, and just concentrate on the new plot, it seems such a shame. It seems such a shame. So yeah, I'll have a little think about that. And there's still things to move. We're still going to move Mark's greenhouse, the shelter. We're going to move the shelter to the new plot as well. So there's still quite a lot of things to do. And I think what I shall probably do is just leave that till last. so I can continue harvesting from it as much as possible until I actually hand over this plot. Right, I'll finish my cup of tea and then we'll head down to the new plot and I'll show you what that's looking like now. Welcome to the new plot, and it's looking slightly different. So it's the opposite from the old plot, which has been emptied out and this has been filled up. And yeah, we we have kind of just dumped stuff onto the plots for the time being, but there are some things that are a bit exciting and have gone in, so I do want to show you those. So yeah, maybe we'll start with that. So just to remind you of the layout here, this covered in plastic, not ours. This bit, technically ours, but not really workable until January when it's officially handed over. And then this side, Mark's plot, and then next to it, my part of the plot. I am just loving this sunshine. It's such a glorious day to be down at the plot. Okay, so towards the front of Mark's plot, so Mark has added the ornamental beehives that he made a couple of years ago. He's added those to the orchard area. But the big addition, of course, is the polytunnel frame here. The base is down here as well, as I said, and it's not placed properly yet, so the cover hasn't gone on, but this is probably the position that he's going to put it in. So that's come down, and then behind it you can see an awful lot of wood, and the black wood at the back there is what he'd already been using as raised beds on the old plot, so he's brought those down. But he's also got a lot of new wood there to make more beds if he so wishes. The arches from Mark's plot are already down here, and then he has done a little bit of planting. So I gave him a couple of my peppermint chards, so he's put those in, and he's also put in some of the Cavolo Nero that were growing on his plot, and I believe he's mulched this with soil that he's taken from his plot, and he's put garlic in there as well. And I think the only other new addition onto Mark's plot so far, don't trip over the slabs, is these gladioli bulbs. So he took all those up. Those were the ones that my sister planted last year. They were absolutely fabulous. And yeah, is this what you should be doing with gladioli bulbs? Leaving them out to dry like this? We might need some advice on that. Now, right at the back of the plot, one of the things that I've been doing is adding to the compost bays. So I've been putting the rabbit bedding in there and any foliage that we've been cutting down to get those composts going, really. And I've got loads more of the rabbit bedding down here to put in. And the other thing I've got is the comfrey and the phacelia from the old plot. I've brought that down to either add to the compost, or the other thing I've been doing on the old plot is taking up some of the compost. Our regular viewers will know that I had a big delivery of compost earlier this year. Really good quality stuff, cost me quite a bit of money. And I don't particularly just want to leave it on the plot, especially because of being no dig, it's sitting on top of the clay soil. So it's quite easy to scrape off and remove. And yeah, it's not really had much growing done in it. So it's good stuff that just needs revitalizing, really. So I've been taking some of that up, and I'm going to mix it with the comfrey in these bags to try and yeah, just renew it a little bit, and then I can use it on the plot. And in fact, I've already used some of it to mulch the asparagus bed. Maybe that will, oh, look at how bumpy this is. That was not like that when I put it in. I did catch a squirrel on here earlier. But the other thing I want to show you is all the things that I've potted up into buckets and brought down. So brassicas, the chard, more brassicas. This, I think, is my Taunton Dean kale. And then also the 2 chicories, because I've never grown chicory before, and I really want to see if they create a lovely chicory heart. Or if they don't like having been moved, then they bolt and make the little blue flowers, because I'm pretty sure that I bought the chicory that would make the really beautiful blue flowers, but but they could just be lettuces because my labelling is so bad. Now the bed that I really want to show you is just behind me here. And these are the first plants to go in the ground of my new plot. And they are all brassicas. So we've got Australian tree cabbages, we've got the 9-star broccoli, we've got some Cavolo Nero, we've got what I think is a Tortondine kale. Now I'm not saying that they're going to stay here indefinitely, but for the time being they're in the ground. I can harvest from them, and so far they have not died. And it's been, what, 4 days? So fingers crossed that they will take. Anything else to show you then? Well, yes. It might not be incredibly exciting, but I brought down my hoops, I brought down some of the trellising, and I brought down the bed, just placed there for the time being, and I brought down the big greenhouse. And this is what I kind of need your help with now. Where is this going to go? It's not going to go there because that's on a little bit of a slope. I think I'm probably going to grow my pumpkins at this part of the plot next year. But if I turn around, this is the flatter part of the plot, and yeah, where could it go on here? I mean, it could in theory go anywhere, but how am I going to utilize it the best? So no changes in the polytunnel at the moment. I've still got the beetroot and lettuces and things that need to go out there. Yeah, lots to do. There's so much still to do, but like I said before, I did not think we would manage as much as we did in one weekend. So yeah, let's hope the weather holds for a few more days so we get another good weekend. I mean, we've had no rain. We've had no rain this November. So let's, yeah, hope that we do need rain, but let's just let it hold off for a few more days. And then, gosh, by next week, I might be seeing the new plot in snow. Who knows?